Hello, all you freedom-loving people. The president of Texas A&M stepped down today, and more officials were fired for a lesson on gender identity. The House passed the stopgap bill, but the Senate did not. And President Trump talked to Xi Jinping today. Okay, let's get into it. Today, President Trump and Chinese Communist Party leader Xi Jinping talked on the phone about a deal that would allow China-based ByteDance to sell TikTok to an American buyer. After the call, President Trump wrote on Truth Social that the call was productive and that it spanned several issues, including trade, fentanyl, the war between Russia and Ukraine, and the approval of the TikTok deal. President Trump wrote, "The call was a very good one. We'll be speaking again by phone. Appreciate the TikTok approval." Xinhua, which is the official Chinese state news agency, published a readout of the call and said that the position of the Chinese Communist Party is that companies can conduct commercial negotiations based on market rules and reach solutions that comply with Chinese laws and regulations and balance interests. President Trump did not share the finalized terms of the deal for TikTok yet, so it's still not clear who will have control over the TikTok algorithm. Previously, we reported that the Secretary of State, Scott Bessent, said that President Trump is not willing to sacrifice national security for a social media app if the CCP still wants to control the algorithm. Today, the House of Representatives passed a stopgap funding bill to fund the government through November 21st in order to avoid a government shutdown. One Democrat joined 216 Republicans to pass the bill, with the final vote tally at 217 to 212. The bill, known as a continuing resolution, will fund the government at current levels if passed in the Senate. It also includes $88 million in security funding for members of Congress, the executive branch, and the Supreme Court justices in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination. In the Senate, the bill needs 60 votes to advance. But the Senate rejected the House-passed stopgap bill 44 to 48 and also blocked a Democrat version 47 to 45. The government runs out of funding on October 1st, since the last day of the fiscal year is September 30th. The House also passed a resolution to honor Charlie Kirk. This resolution passed by a vote of 310 to 58, with 38 voting present. All Republicans who voted yes. 95 Democrats, including House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, voted in favor of the resolution. The resolution, that was led by House Speaker Mike Johnson, honors Charlie Kirk's life and his legacy, and it calls on all Americans to commit to respectful debate. The resolution also condemned the assassination of Charlie Kirk and all political violence. And yesterday, the Senate voted in one step to confirm 48 nominations that were made by President Trump to various executive branch agencies. The move came after the Senate adopted a new rule that allows nominees to be confirmed more quickly. The new rule, known as the nuclear option, was passed by the Senate on September 15th. The nominations included several national security-related positions. The list named former Representative Brandon Williams as Undersecretary of Energy for Nuclear Security, Michael Cadenassi as Assistant Secretary of Defense for Industrial-Based Policy, and Catherine Sutton as Assistant Secretary of Defense for Cyber Policy. The list also named Callista Gingrich, who was the wife of former House Speaker Newt Gingrich, as ambassador to Switzerland and Liechtenstein, and Kimberly Guilfoyle, who was the former fiancée of Donald Trump Jr. and ex-wife of California Governor Gavin Newsom, as ambassador to Greece. All 48 nominations were approved by a vote of 51 to 47. Some of the nominations have been pending since January 20th, when President Trump took office. This was because Senate Democrats denied unanimous consent to proceed because of concerns about the qualifications and loyalties of the nominees. And they demanded more scrutiny of each nominee before a final vote. Now that the Senate has granted advice and consent to the nominations, the nominees may be commissioned by President Trump and sworn into office. And yesterday, the Trump administration officially asked the Supreme Court to grant an emergency order in order to remove Federal Reserve Board Governor Lisa Cook from her position. While the White House awaits for the Supreme Court response to the Federal Reserve case, the justices have set November 5th for oral arguments in a separate challenge to the Trump administration's reciprocal tariffs. Yesterday, New York Democratic Party Chairman Jay Jacobs declined to endorse the Democratic nominee for New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani. Jacobs said that he disagrees with how Mamdani wants to handle the income disparity in the state. Jacobs also said he opposed Mamdani's views on Israel and on democratic socialism. Jacobs said, "Mr. Mamdani and I are in agreement that America's greatest problem is the continued growth of income disparity in our nation. On how to address it, we fundamentally disagree. Furthermore, I reject the platform of the so-called Democratic Socialists of America and do not believe that it represents the principles, values, or policies of the Democratic Party." Jacobs' decision came after New York's Democratic Governor Kathy Hochul endorsed Mamdani. Other Democratic leaders in New York have also held off from endorsing Mamdani, including Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Both Schumer and Jeffries have met with Mamdani since he won the nomination, but have not endorsed him. And in other news from New York, yesterday, federal agents arrested at least a dozen New York State elected officials inside a federal facility in Manhattan that is used to temporarily house illegal immigrants. And dozens more individuals were arrested outside the facility. 11 elected officials were detained after they refused to follow law enforcement orders and attempted to access a restricted 10th floor area of the facility. 77 people were detained in all. Brad Lander, who is the city's comptroller, was one of those elected officials. Lander was arrested for the second time after being previously detained in June. This time, Lander entered the facility with a group of protesters and the media, and he declared that he was not leaving until the illegal immigrants who were detained in the cells were released. The group of protesters sat down on the ground and displayed an anti-immigrations and customs enforcement banner. The banner had ICE with a strike through it. When the protesters refused to leave, they were detained with plastic zip-tie handcuffs. Tricia McLaughlin, who is the Assistant Secretary for the Homeland Security Department, said that the behavior of the protesters endangered the safety of federal agents. McLaughlin said, "Brad Lander's obsession with attacking the brave men and women of law enforcement physically and rhetorically must stop now." In response, Lander, who subsequently was released, called the matter a human rights issue and called for more oversight. According to Lander and the protesters, the group was attempting to verify whether authorities were complying with a court order that was issued on September 17th. That new order directed the federal agency to reduce overcrowding and to improve living conditions inside the facility. Lander said a federal judge has indicated that the federal law is not being followed, the conditions are cruel and inhumane, that ICE is not respecting their rights. The Department of Homeland Security, the DHS, called the list of detainees at the facility who await immigration hearings or deportation alarming. The list goes from an MS-13 gang member to a repeat drone offender near the White House to gun charges and to drug traffickers. One detainee was even caught with 2 kilograms of fentanyl, which is an amount that the DEA estimates could kill about 1 million people. The DHS also said that after the arrests, the building was later placed on a lockdown because of a bomb threat. Today, the president of Texas A&M University is stepping down less than 2 weeks after a student's viral complaint about gender ideology in the classroom resulted in a series of firings. This included the firing of the teacher, as well as the dismissal of a dean and a department chair. Mark A. Welsh III, who was a retired Air Force 4-star general, has been leading Texas A&M since 2022. His resignation now came after Brian Harrison, who is a Republican state representative, circulated the viral footage and pressed for Welsh's removal. Harrison shared the viral footage on September 8th. The footage was originally filmed in July during a children's literature course, in which a student and the instructor, Melissa McCool, spoke. In the video, we hear the student referring to President Trump and maintaining that there are only two genders. The student said, "I'm not entirely sure this is legal to be teaching because, according to our president, there are only two genders." He said that he would be freezing agencies funding programs that promote gender ideology. And this also very much goes against not only myself, but a lot of people's religious beliefs. And so I'm not going to participate in this because it's not legal. The teacher, Melissa McCool, then responded saying, "You are under a misconception that what I'm saying is illegal." McCool also told the student that she is very free to leave and now is the time to do that. Under the same post, Representative Brian Harrison posted a letter to Texas Governor Abbott. He demanded immediate action, asking Abbott to fire the A&M officials that are involved and to instruct his regents at all public universities to immediately end all DEI and LGBTQ indoctrination. Representative Harris also wrote a letter to the Trump administration and asked for investigations. And Representative Harris released an audio in which the same student appealed directly to the Texas A&M President Welsh to dismiss the professor. Welsh replied, "That's not happening." So the confrontation caught the attention of Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Abbott criticized university staff for allowing McCool to blatantly indoctrinate students in gender ideology, and in response, McCool was fired. But McCool said, through her lawyer, that her termination was a violation of constitutional rights and that she will appeal the decision. Also, back in January, Texas Governor Greg Abbott threatened to fire Welsh after the university's business school invited advanced PhD students and faculty to a conference that was designed to recruit Black, Hispanic, and Indigenous graduate students. And after the threat, Welsh said that Texas A&M would pull out of the conference completely. The fentanyl crisis continues to be a global concern, particularly in the United States. Fentanyl-related deaths are staggering, claiming tens of thousands of lives annually. Fentanyl abuse has become a major threat to public health in the United States. Fentanyl primarily originates from China, but it enters through Mexico and Canada. The Chinese Communist Party views the United States as its number one enemy. This is nothing new, of course. It has always been the case. Fentanyl is a potent synthetic opioid that is 50 to 100 times more potent than morphine. Originally developed for medical use, such as post-operative pain relief, fentanyl has become the latest illicit drug due to its extremely high addictive potential. Its lethality is also extremely high. In 2022 alone, nearly 70,000 people in the United States died from fentanyl overdoses. The ease of access to fentanyl, its low cost, and its compatibility with other drugs have exacerbated this crisis. Many users are unaware that the substances they consume contain fentanyl, leading to frequent accidental overdoses. Although fentanyl can be produced anywhere, China is the primary source of production. Despite Chinese claims of strength and controls, the United States continues to accuse certain Chinese companies of supplying drug trafficking groups. Moreover, the U.S. Congressional Special Committee on China previously reported that the CCP has implemented incentive arrangements, such as value-added tax rebates for certain enterprises involved in fentanyl precursors or related chemicals. This means that the CCP is effectively encouraging Chinese companies to manufacture fentanyl precursors and export them. China naturally denies this claim. Some Chinese business people counter that these chemicals are legitimate pharmaceutical intermediates, and companies cannot fully ascertain the buyers and uses, making sales of fentanyl compliant on paper. This argument has theoretical merit. The key precursor for synthetic fentanyls are 4-ANPP and NPP. These chemicals themselves have legitimate uses. However, industry insiders in China have revealed that the real reason Chinese pharmaceutical companies are reluctant to halt production of fentanyl precursor chemicals is that these products are low cost, in high demand, and generate staggering profits. A Shandong-based industry insider familiar with the chemical sector, let's call him Shi Min. He told reporters that even for small and medium-sized chemical plants, manufacturing fentanyl precursors is not complicated. With low raw material costs and limited technical barriers, these precursors can fetch prices several times or even dozens of times higher on the international market. Shi Min cited an example. In Shandong province, the production cost of 1 ton of precursor chemicals might be only around 100,000 yuan or $15,000, but smuggling it out can yield profits several times higher. Compared to traditional chemical products, this is a huge profit margin. He explained that many factories register under the guise of pharmaceutical intermediates, appearing legitimate on paper while fully aware of the buyer's true purposes. He said, even if a chemical is added to the controlled substance list, someone will quickly develop a substitute with a slightly altered molecular structure, rename it, and keep selling it. Regulation is always one step behind, and the profits are simply too high. The chemical structure of fentanyl is easily modified to produce new analogs. This makes monitoring and control significantly more challenging. On the surface, the Chinese Communist Party has implemented comprehensive controls on fentanyl-related substances since 2019, gradually adding several precursor chemicals to its list of regulated substances. However, new variants and substitutes continue to emerge, while evasion tactics such as cross-border e-commerce and cryptocurrency transactions complicate tracking efforts. The gray market supply chain remains operational. The U.S. has repeatedly pressured China over precursor chemicals, and local governments, driven by profit motives and industrial dependence, often turn a blind eye. He stated, the key issue is that the central government hasn't made a concerted effort to address this, nor has it demanded consistency between official rhetoric and actual enforcement on this matter. Mr. Goulet, a public policy scholar at a Chinese university, pointed out that China's vast number of small and medium-sized chemical plants and local-level industrial dependencies make it extremely difficult to conduct a thorough investigation of exports. He said, as long as overseas markets remain, profits will continue to drive gray market production and exports. Lin Jian, a spokesperson for the Chinese Communist Party's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, stated at a regular press conference, fentanyl is America's problem, not China's. The responsibility lies with the United States itself. But some argue that the very reason this issue remains unresolved is because the CCP government hasn't cracked down hard enough. A political dissident, let's call him Li Ming, stated, the defining feature of an authoritarian government is that they can ban whatever they want. It takes effect immediately. He questioned the foreign ministry's response by saying, in their eyes, nothing is truly off limits, blocking the internet, shutting down churches, silencing rights defenders, suppressing public gatherings. Logically speaking, they can make it happen if they want to. Another reason that is often overlooked for the Chinese Communist government's lack of genuine commitment to banning fentanyl precursors lies in the mid-19th century. At that time, China, then under the Qing dynasty, fought 2 opium wars against European powers. The first, from 1840 to 1842, was against Britain. The second, from 1856 to 1860, involved Britain and France. Both wars stemmed from the opium trade. Opium was originally used in medicine as anesthetic. However, the Chinese discovered its non-medical uses. Smoking opium produced euphoria, but led to high psychological and physical dependence. Consequently, demand surged dramatically. To reverse its trade deficit, Britain expanded opium cultivation in its Bengal territory, smuggling it continuously into China. Later, American merchants also joined the ranks of those supplying opium to China. The Qing emperors believed opium was damaging the health of the Chinese people and causing vast amounts of silver to flow out of China. Consequently, they attempted to ban the opium trade on several occasions. Both opium wars were sparked by these efforts. Opium indeed inflicted immense physical harm on the Chinese populace and shattered their willpower. Compounded by the Industrial Revolution, which had equipped Europe with superior weaponry and naval vessels, both wars ended in Chinese defeat. This resulted in the signing of a series of treaties that the Chinese regarded as unequal. Chinese Communist Party textbooks characterize these two defeats as the turning point, marking China's decline from prosperity. Therefore, the Chinese Communist Party is well aware of how drugs can undermine a nation's strength. A country whose citizens lack physical health cannot truly become a powerful nation. Thus, while the CCP strictly prohibits drugs within China's borders, it has no qualms about using drugs to destroy other nations. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember to leave a comment below the video. This is really helping us to be seen all around the world. The more people who watch Front Page, the more freedom-loving people the world will have. And please hit the like button and hit the notification bell after subscribing. And please share this video with your friends and family because everybody deserves to know the truth.